Namaskar, Nilesh here with another episode of Shraddha and Pradnya. In this episode, we are going to initiate our discussion on the Mahabharata's Mars Mystery. Now, what is this Mars Mystery? It is about the ability of various Mahabharata dating researchers to explain, to validate, to corroborate 8 specific descriptions of planet Mars as it is described, or as these different descriptions are mentioned in the Mahabharata text, very much in the context of the Mahabharata war. So what we will do, I will show you the list of the specific 8 descriptions of Mars around the time of Mahabharata war, their quick translation, the current problem. You can think of this as a quick Purva Paksha of all 130 plus Mahabharata researchers who have some form of claim on the dating of Mahabharata. They have claimed in some fashion that they have found the specific year of the Mahabharata war, and not surprisingly, each one of them thinks that what they have found is the correct date. Now, Mahabharata text has 300 plus different astronomy pieces of evidence. And in a scientific fashion, when we try to validate or test for any given specific claim, very likely what's going to happen is that if the date is correct, ideally, all of that 300 plus evidence should match, get validated, corroborated for that date. However, a very likely possibility, as is the case in any field of science, is that a majority of the evidence may get matched or should get matched if the date is correct. And there may be some pieces of evidence that may not get validated, may not get corroborated. And this could be for many reasons. It may have to do with the fact that the translation or interpretation may not be right. It could be due to the Partha Bhed that enter or emerge with any ancient text over a period of time. It could be due to interpolations. It could be due to additions, and so on and so forth. We don't know that until we test. So let's begin with the list of Mars references from the Mahabharata text. So this is part 7 in Shraddha and Pradnya. All right, so let's jump into the list itself. There are 8 references, as I said. So let's go through each one of them. The first reference, again, remember, Mahabharata is a huge text, 125,000 verses. We are going to look at essentially 8 verses out of it. But to the best of knowledge, best of my knowledge, I have extracted every single Mars related reference description in the context of Mahabharata war, and I'm presenting it here. This is not to discount the possibility that there could be additional Mars references that I might have missed. Now, how we should deal with them? How would we deal with them? Well, if and when they are found, they should also be tested for my date. When I say my date, it is based on the Mahabharata evidence, but I have to use this language because there are 130 plus other individuals, okay, who are claiming practically those many different years for the timing of Mahabharata war. And many times, at least as far as the pep talk is concerned, they are saying, hey, this is based on the Mahabharata. In reality, you will find most of the people, most of these so-called researchers have not even bothered to read Mahabharata text. and they are even not aware of the evidence. Okay, so and I'll mention that here, but let's just focus only on the Mars evidence. So it's like we are looking at a very specific, unique set of evidence related to the planet Mars, Angarak, Lohitanga, Mangal, okay, or Mangal, that planet. And 8 references basically account for what? 8 out of 300 plus. So that's like a 2% of the total references. And in a scientific fashion, we have to look at all of them. But what I want to show you here, even just the 2% of the evidence for specific Mars, specifically Mars planet, is so amazing and it's so decisive that once this evidence is discussed, you will find people are not willing to engage in discussion about their claim. They run away from the claim. They find a tangent so that they don't have to discuss Mars evidence, or they simply go silent until this discussion, whether it is happening at a conference, whether it is happening at a workshop, whether it is happening in a social media, whether it is happening in some discussion groups, until that discussion goes away, these people simply keep quiet because they cannot validate, corroborate these descriptions from Mahabharata text for the year they are claiming. Let's begin with the specific evidence. Number one, the evidence begins in the Udyog Parva, which is Parva before the descriptions of the Mahabharata war begin, or before the Mahabharata war begin. Udyoga Parva, as in the preparation for the war. In fact, this is the Parva when Krishna goes on a peace mission to Hastinapur, and he does not succeed. Okay, he did not succeed, so he have to come back. The war preparations begin. Both armies arrive at Kurukshetra. Kaurava army from Hastinapur side from the east, okay, right at the Kurukshetra. Pandava army and Pandavas themselves from Upaplavya coming from the west, and they are facing each other. Pandavas from the west and Kauravas from the east. At Kurukshetra, the war happened for 18 days. Most of you know that. Now, these descriptions, some of these descriptions are there, and I'm going to mention when that particular description came into being, but no specific time is mentioned. On the other hand, there are some descriptions of Mars where a specific time during the war is also mentioned. Okay, so when the time is not mentioned, it is up to a researcher to make an argument as to when that particular observation was possibly made and his or her justification, why he or she thinks that is the timing of that observation, and so on. So this is observation that occurs in the Udyog Parva. This occurs during the conversation between Krishna and Karna. Krishna failed at his peace mission. Now he's returning from Hastinapur to Upaplavya. Upaplavya is where Pandav are stationed. And on the way, he requests Karna to have a word with him. Actually, they get on the same chariot and they have a discussion. As a part of this discussion, it is Karna who is mentioning some of the nimitta. Okay, he says, I see that we have made all this effort. I have taken a certain side. Krishna tries to change Karna's mind. He again did not succeed. But Karna says, I think I know what the outcome is going to be. And I am seeing various signs. Signs as in Lakshana. Okay, symbol, which is to say what? The symbol does not describe, or symbol is not responsible for the final outcome, but symbol is consequential. Okay, so you can say that is how Vasudev has embedded these references, which allows us to date the specific year of Mahabharata war. So Karna is saying one of the lakshan, one of the nimitta that he's seeing he says, Krutva Changarako Vakram Jeshtaya Madhusudana Anuradha Prarthayate Maitram Samshama Yanniva. Simple translation for our objective validation, objective testing purpose is simply this. Mars went Vakra near Jeshtha and Anuradha Nakshatra. Now, deliberately, I am leaving the translation of word Vakra as a Vakra, and I'll explain why that is so. Let's go to the next one. The second reference is the next verse. Okay, so it's connected with that to the extent, if you notice, the second verse does not mention again the name of Angarak, as in Mars. And that has also caused confusion among researchers. Okay, but let's look at the verse. Nunam mahadbayam Krishna kurunam samupastitam visheshenahi varshneya chitram pidayate graha. Again, Karna is telling Krishna that just like Angarak is going Vakra near Jeshta Anuradha, that same planet, Vishesha Pidayate Graha, that same planet, Graha it is referring to, is afflicting Chitra, afflicting Nakshatra Chitra in a peculiar fashion. Visheshena Pidayate. Okay. Now, this is again open to interpretation by researchers. Even many researchers have taken this second verse and simply that taken the Graha as just a planet, and then they have gone on another expedition trying to imagine what that planet is. Actually, the verse is connected with the first verse and the reference is to Angarak. But again, remember, this is how it works out in research or the freedom of thought. Somebody, if they want to claim that this second reference is not referring to Angarak, not referring to Mars, and referring to some other planet, which they have done, by the way, then they have to explain why they think it's not Angarak and something else. And whatever something else that they describe, they have to show not only that that particular planet was afflicting Chitra in a peculiar fashion, but any additional references related to that planet. So let us say somebody takes this second reference, Graha, as to mean not Mars, but say Venus or Mercury or Jupiter or Saturn. Then the Mahabharata text, we are not discussing it today, but for each of these planets, there are additional descriptions in the Mahabharata text. And as soon as a specific researcher claims or pretends that this Graha is not Angarak or Mars, but something else, and specifies what that specific planet is, it is the onus on that researcher to not only show how this description of reference number 2 matches for his or her claimed year of Mahabharata war, but for that specific planet, how rest of the references from the Mahabharata text also match for his or her claimed year for the Mahabharata war. Okay, let's go to the third one. So what I'm saying is, it is the same Angarak, it's just next verse there. There is no other additional description coming there. Visheshane Varshneya Chitram Pidiyate Graha, that Mars is afflicting Chitra in a peculiar fashion. So it went Vakra near Jeshta Anuradha. It has also afflicted Chitra in a peculiar fashion. Let's go to the third one. Then it is saying, now these are the descriptions now, the third one and further, between Vyasadev and Dhritarashtra. So now Vyasa is telling these nimitta, lakshana, signs, symbols, okay, to Dhritarashtra. What does he say? Sena yora shivam ghoram karishyati mahagraha maghaswangarako vakra shravanecha brahaspati. So now we see second instance of a vakra there. Mars went vakra near Magha and Jupiter went vakra near Shravan. Now in this case, we are going to ignore the Jupiter, okay? But in order to understand truly the meaning of vakra, we will have to bring Jupiter going vakra or vakri near Shravan, because these are the only 3 references of a planet going vakri or vakra near a specific nakshatra in the context of Mahabharata war in the Mahabharata text. Okay, let's move on to the next one. The fourth reference, again, it's a continuation of the conversation between Vyasadeva and Dhritarashtra. So Vyasa telling Dhritarashtra, Dhruva prajvalito ghoram apasavya pravartate chitra swatyantare chaiva deshtita parusho graha. Mars moved in non-normal direction, that apasavya, okay, by, you can say anti-clockwise, but I don't want to use the word anti-clockwise. Therefore, deliberately, I'm using the word non-normal, okay, because then people start confusing even more. So whichever is the normal motion of the Mars, now in this time it is apasavya. So Mars moved in a non-normal direction in reference to how it typically moves. By becoming fixed, Dhruva, near Chitra and Swati, near Nakshatra, Chitra, Swati, okay, in between Chitra, Swati, Antare, between near Chitra and Swati, while becoming scary bright. Prajvalito ghoram, ghora prajvalita, and it has become fixed, Dhruva, Dishtita, and so on, okay. Now it says Parushograha. It has not, in that particular line, it has not said Angarak or Lohitanga or Mangal. Okay. Now the next verse, very important. So those are connected. So it said, look, it went Vakra, and now it has gone Vakra twice. Remember, number 1 and also number 3. That's what it is referring to in the verse 5. It says Vakranu Vakram Krutwamcha. So after going Vakra, Anuvakra, okay, what did this planet do? The planet description is in the second line. Krutvacha Shravane Pavaka Prabha. This planet, you can say that Parushograha, came in the region of bright Shravana Nakshatra. What else it did? Brahma Rashim Samavrutya Lohitango Vyavastitaha. And then it came and lined up itself, okay, stood up along Samavrutya, like near, along the same line, whatever you want to call it, or if you want to use the Vrutta, then as in like a same longitude, same latitude, of course, in this case, the longitude, okay, because now you have to know some very basics of astronomy, okay. The planets are going along the ecliptic, so their position is noted by longitude, not so much the latitude, unless you are specifically interested in a latitude, such as some very amazing, unique, ancient phenomenon only documented in ancient Indian astronomy, such as Rohini Shakata Ved. But that's not what we are looking at here. So only longitude. So Brahma Rashim Samavrutya Lohitango Vyavastita. So after Vakra Anuvakra motion, Mars lined up along Brahma Rashi. Now, surprise, surprise. Even this Brahma Rashi becomes a issue of a discussion, and rightfully so. One reason is because most of the people who deal with this, okay, refuse to study astronomy, refuse to study multiple ancient Indian narratives. This Brahma Rashi and its identification is so consistent from, say, Parashar Tantra, which is a text on astronomy, okay, or Valmiki Ramayana, which narrates the Itihasa of a Bhagwan Rama, or Mahabharata, okay, which is narrating the Itihasa of a Kurus. Brahma Rashim Samavrutya Lohitango Vyavastita. What is very clear is that whatever that Brahma Rashi is, now Brahma Rashi is very, very clear, guys. But to some people, they have chosen to make, for reasons of their own, and if we have a time, we'll discuss those, deliberately create a confusion among the common masses as to what Brahma Rashi is. Fortunately, the Patha Bhed comes to our help. As such, Brahma Rashi, the word used in Mahabharata, Brahma Rashi is the word that is used in a Ramayana in a very specific context. Here, we also have additional evidence that whatever that Brahma Rashi is very near Nakshatra Shravan. The Brahma, the word Brahma or Brahma itself is giving us a clue. And as if that's not sufficient, if you go to the southern edition, sometimes known as a Kumbha Konam edition of a Mahabharata text, do you know what you find as a part of Veda, a different variant readings, sometimes they call it? Instead of Brahma Rashim Samavrutya, how beautiful, it says Brahma Nakshatra Samavrutta. And what is the nakshatra of a Brahma? Remember, Prajapatyam cha nakshatra. The nakshatra can be stated with a clear name such as a Shravan and Rohini and Kritika, or it is also stated by referring to the Devata of a nakshatra. Now, there is one nakshatra among the 27, 28 nakshatra whose Devata is a Brahma, and that nakshatra is Abhijit. So this Brahma Rashi is referring to Abhijit, and what Mahabharata text is saying is that after going through all of these motions, after Vakra Anuvakra motions, Mars lined up along Abhijit, along Brahma Rashi near Nakshatra Shravan. Let's look at the remaining three. Then on the first day of the war, we have a simple conjunction. Okay. Now, some of the people with a very limited understanding of astronomy, they will look at conjunction and they will just start asking, oh, by what degree? Is it like a 1 degree, 2 degree? Because that's how when we use the word conjunction, it's like two planets being very, very close to each other. In reality, they're not close, but they appear to be close as seen from the Earth. Okay. But here we are just talking, that they are samiyatu. That's the word. Okay. They are close. Okay. Mars and Mercury could be seen together in the sky. That's on the first day of the war. The next reference also says that not only Mars and Mercury could be seen together in the sky on the first day at some point, but Shukra Angaraka Yoriva, and above there is a Angaraka Buddha Viva. And in the seventh reference, it's a Shukra Angaraka Yoriva, that Venus and Mars could be seen together in the sky again on the first day of the war. Now, they were seen in the sky, which means either they were seen before sunrise or they were seen after sunset. Okay, otherwise the planets are not easy to see. The last one, the last reference of the 8 is from a Shalya Parva. And this is sometime before noon on the 18th day of the war. Literally where the reference appears. Now, actual observation could be either before sunrise, as I said, or after sunset. But remember, even when during the daytime, you cannot see the position of the star, if one is good at astronomy, you can actually note down the specific positions of the planets and where exactly they are with respect to sun and so on. So that's also possible. But in any case, the observation we should be able to show that these three planets, let me read the reference first. Bhrugu Suno Dharaputro Shashi Jena Samanvito Charamam Panduputranam Purastat Sarvabhu Bhujam. Okay, so Venus, Mars, and Mercury could be seen together in the sky, and this was on the 18th day of the war. So either they could be seen before sunrise or they could be seen after sunset. And since Mercury is also shown there, mentioned, and of course even Venus, so if it is after sunset, it has to be immediately after sunset. If it is going to be before sunrise, it's going to be just before sunrise, okay? Because Mercury is very, very close to the sun. So these are the 8 references that we have. So quick summary here. There are 8 distinct descriptions of Mars at the time of Mahabharata war. No other Mahabharata researcher and no other year except 5561 BCE can demonstrate validation of any, now this is very important, of any or all 8 descriptions of Mars. If you guys understand, if you understand this statement, no other claimed year for the Mahabharata war can demonstrate the validation, the corroboration of, forget 8, but any of the 8 descriptions of the Mars as described there, okay, for their claimed year. How pathetic is this situation? And when I point this out and when I said, how wrong is that? And why would these researchers not come up and admit that they are wrong? Is this not a fraud in a broad daylight? Now, somebody will say, well, it's not a fraud. Maybe it's an error. Yes, it is an error if the person has not realized, but when somebody points it out, somebody gives that other individual a sufficient chance. And instead of coming forward and showing the demonstration of how these 8 descriptions or any of these 8 descriptions corroborate a specific claim or whatever the other claim that any of these 100 plus researchers are claiming, if they cannot show that, then it is a fraud in a broad daylight. And I do not understand their motivation. Well, you let me know if you understand what could be their motivation to still perpetuate and continue with whatever year they claim and pretend or try to tell people that that is the year of Mahabharata war. Okay. It is very pathetic. And how, if we continue to do that, how are we different when we talk about Satyameva Jayate Nanrutam Satyena Labhyas, in Satyena Labhyas Tapasa Yesha Atma, only through Satya we are going to understand Brahma. Well, that is still true, but is this a acceptable way of doing research in a dharmic context? Most Mahabharata researchers are simply not aware of these 8 descriptions of Mars. Now, some people will say, some ordinary individual will say, well, maybe Nilesh, because they're not aware of it. Well, multiple problems now. If the person is not even aware of it and still going ahead and claiming something, we have got a bigger problem, which means the person even doesn't know how to do proper research. But this next step, what if they are not aware? That can happen. Frankly, as I said, maybe I have not found all the Mars references. There could be additional references. But when somebody points out additional reference to me, it is my duty to take that reference, test it, and show whether it corroborates my claim or not, and definitely make that result open, okay? Disclose it. That's perfectly fine, because as I said, there could be some references that may not be corroborated for a specific claim, whether 5561 BC or any other. Okay, that's very scientific, guys. That's how the progress in science, if you consider just even the Western science of last 500 plus years, has took place. Okay, has taken place, which is to say Copernicus did something, and then Kepler came, and then Tycho Brahe came, and then Galileo came, right? And then Kepler, and then Newton, and then Lagrange, and then Maxwell, Faraday, okay, on and on, okay, Fresnel, Lorentz, and just this went on, Euler, and then Einstein, okay, many others. I'm not Henry Poincaré, I'm not saying all the names, and it still goes on. So you have to be very honest and point out what does not agree or does not corroborate for your claim. But that is not happening in this space of the dating of Mahabharata. It's also true when it comes to the dating of Ramayana. And frankly, this is also true. It's not always astronomy evidence, by the way, but it's also true when it comes to the dating of Rigveda. Next one, those who are aware do not, aware meaning those who, in the sense, those Mahabharata researchers who are aware, do not dare discuss these Mars descriptions for their claim, as each of them as in each of these 8 Mars descriptions, decisively falsify each of those 100, 130 plus claims. So when I say decisively falsify or do not corroborate, that is the language of science. In a simple language, this evidence proves every other date other than 5561 BCE decisively wrong. It proves it wrong. Okay. As a result, when asked, these Mahabharata researchers avoid discussion of Mars evidence, go on a tangent, or remain silent with the hope that issue goes away and no one holds them responsible for their fake claims. Now, why do they succeed in this last one? Because majority of our people, the academics, the so-called researchers, okay, the dharmic experts, public intellectuals, many of them are not familiar with, for example, the Darshana-Shastra, or say specifically in this case, logic, the Nyaya Darshan Shastra, All these things that I'm mentioning, for example, they avoid the discussion, okay, simply change the topic, go on another tangent, okay, remain silent. Guess what? Somebody will say, I'll just take the fifth, in the way we say it in America, in the court case, he's taking the fifth, meaning he's not going to say anything, okay? Remember, guess what? While that works in a defective judicial system of the West, in the Nyaya Darshana tradition, somebody chooses to participate into the debate, pretends or claims that he has or she has alternate position, therefore there is a debate, but then remains silent, that is worthy of a rebuke. And actually, a person expert in Nyaya Darshana, and if he or she is a judge, then they will declare that person, will give few chances, like say one chance, second chance, third chance. Possibly, do you want to come tomorrow with your answer if you're not prepared today, or a few days? That's all possible. But after that, after the specific conditions are, if they are not met, then the judging panel has to declare that person as who lost the debate. Okay. Now, the judging, it doesn't have to be judging panel. It's ordinary people. And there were, in our past, there were people who were very familiar with these laws of Nyaya Darshan. This is laws in the sense of, this is common sense, guys, okay? This is put together for a effective analysis, okay? Effective analysis to resolve the doubt. So that's why this thing continues. This is where I want to stop in this part. In the next part of the Mahabharata Mars Mystery, I want to start with the retrograde motion of Mars. And the reason I want to do that is there no one specific individual, but many individuals tell me through different means that yes, they have a directional idea what this retrograde motion of Mars is, but visually they're not very sure. Or when we discuss this specific nakshatra business, which nakshatra, and Vakri, somebody says, oh, Vakri means retrograde. I assert that the description of Mars or Jupiter going Vakri near specific nakshatras, 3 instances of it in the Mahabharata, I'm saying Vakri does not mean retrograde. And then people usually get lost. Okay. And these people who love to go on the tangent or, avoid the discussion, they are happy. Okay. So ultimately, it's each one of us who have to, if we truly care, by the way, if you don't care, hey, move on with your life, whatever makes you happy. But those of you who do care, and remember, for understanding Dharma, for understanding any principle, we have to have that grounded in the context of what we typically say, Desha, Kala, and Patra. The other context, the Patra is in a sense of contextual or qualifications and so on, but Desha, the place, and a Kala. And what this does is it provides a sheet anchor for our Indian civilization. And just understanding and realizing that the Mahabharata war happened in 5561 BCE. People say, so what about, so what? Just if you truly understand, okay, not blindly, if you understand that Mahabharata war happened in 5561 BCE, I'm not going to explain how that is so. I have done it in many of my lectures, but that is also something that every one of us must understand, because there is nothing more scientific than this claim of 5561 BC as the year of Mahabharata war. When that is established, instantaneously, it throws away the utterly foolish, utterly prejudiced, okay, racist dogma of Aryan invasion theory. And why one worry about Aryan invasion theory? And some people say, oh, I thought that was gone. Well, that means you are not keeping up in the intellectual Kshatriya field, intellectual Kurukshetra, you are clueless as to what is happening. But so what again? I mean, that's a perfect question to ask, because guess what? Based on that Aryan invasion nonsense, our Rigveda very blindly, with carelessly and casually, with a hand waving, is dated to 1500 BC. So entire Sanatan civilization, Vedic civilization, Hindu civilization, as pushed by Western Indologists, begins in 1500 BC by some people who came from outside. This is all connected. Now, against that, compare when Mahabharata, we can assert scientifically and logically with the same force as the any best claim in the entire 500-year-old history of modern science, when we can say with that confidence, and we can, therefore I am spending that much time, last 12 years, when we can show that the Mahabharata war happened in 5561 BC, and of course we'll do that I have done that for a Ramayana happening 14,000 years ago. Guess what? The entire argument of AIT falls off, because what is the Aryan invasion argument? That some people from outside India came to India and brought with them either the Sanskrit language or the language from which Sanskrit came into being. Okay, and then they wrote Rigveda and then Ramayana, Mahabharata, and so on. Guess what? It is impossible. Like the references of the Mahabharata text or Valmiki Ramayana are so precise, so accurate. You cannot just as in a science fiction style backdate these things. Okay, and that can be proved. That is being proved. And claim something at 5561 BC. And guess what? In 5561 BC, so that's like a 4,000 years before this stupidity of Aryan invasion in 1500 BC, or if you go to Ramayana, 12,000 BC, that's like what? 10,000 years before, there was a wonderful civilization right here in India, okay, with Sanskrit as a well-settled, well-nurtured language, okay, with sophisticated astronomy, because all these references that I'm discussing in the Mahabharata or Ramayana, they simply, nobody can even describe them in that fashion, in a consistent fashion, unless there is the existence of sophisticated astronomy. What kind of sophistication I'm saying? There is no comparison with this sophistication of Indian astronomy with a extremely rudimentary, okay, extremely elementary, still impressive, by the way, on its own terms, the astronomy of Ptolemy, the astronomy, the so-called Greek astronomy, so-called Western European astronomy. So those are the implications, guys. That's why this is important. The reason I again mention this is because many people will say, hey, how does it matter? And this is not coming from some village folks, guys. This is coming from the so-called degree holders, okay? So-called dharma intellectuals. They say, how does it matter? I only look at the values of Mahabharata. You know, that is like going to a mandir. And why do we go to mandir? We go for many reasons, of course, to meet friends, okay? But take the darshan of a deity, then spend some time there, you know, get the right vibrations, you know, do some meditation and many other things. And even a good prasadam too. But what if somebody just says, hey, you know, I don't care any other aspects of the temple. All I go there for is that piece of almond, the almond that they gave me. Now, hey, that's good. But that's like missing the whole point of why one goes to the temple. Similarly, the insistence or even the passion, and this is not just my passion, guys, this is the passion felt by hundreds and hundreds of dharmic researchers, great intellectuals over last 100, 200, 300, 500,000, 2,000, 3,000 years. Okay, why? Because that gives us the anchoring for understanding various other aspects of our civilization. All right, with that, I will stop sharing. I will see you in another episode of Shraddha and Pradnya. And we will continue this Mahabharata Mars mystery. And next time, we will start with a demo on a demonstration of what it means when we say Mars is going retrograde. Of course, we will look at the other planets going retrograde also, such as Jupiter, Saturn, Mercury, and Venus. But we will begin with Mars. And for most part, we will stay there. until we go through all the 8 pieces of evidence for Mars. Namaskar.